you can see from the headline banner, we're going straight in at the top or near the top of the heavyweight division. And as you can see, it's all about the recently announced heavyweight showdown between Anthony Joshua, still soon after his last outing against Otto Wallin. Already got another fight announced for March, but not against Deontay Wilder, as was originally planned after Joseph Parker upset the apple cart in that regard, but against former UFC champion, MMA superstar Francis Ngannou, coming off that struggle with Tyson Fury that many people felt could have gone either way. Obviously, Fury got the nod ultimately. But yeah, AJ grasping the nettle or taking the money. It depends which way you look at it. Ayman, what was your first reaction to hearing that this fight had been signed?
Quite frankly, I was confused as to how this fight has come about and why Anthony Joshua specifically has gone the direction he's gone. Let's start with Francis Ngannou and say, look, for Francis, and you're going to hear this a lot as you heard the first time round when Francis fought Tyson Fury, is great for Francis. Another opportunity to earn a lot of money, another opportunity at the UFC where you don't get your money into boxing now, where you're getting paid over in Saudi Arabia. You're getting the big nights, you're getting the big fights, you're getting the big paydays. Brilliant for Francis, who's finally getting what he deserves. Great for him. Move Francis out of the equation now. Anthony Joshua and his direction in his career, on his climb back to being 3-time world champion. So nice you have to do it twice. So nice you want to do it thrice. But it's not for a title. It's not for anything that will position him towards a title. So I'm confused by that because that's been the direction that he said when Radio Raheem spoke to him and said, look, when I think about opponents I want, if it positions me for a world title, then I'm taking that. But Francis Ngannou doesn't do that. I thought Filip Hrgović would be doing that. So would we not be fighting Filip Hrgović for the belt or something along those lines? And then when I think it was maybe rewind 3 months ago when it was pitched to Eddie Hearn as to whether Anthony Joshua would be interested in a fight with Francis Ngannou when Tyson Fury was fighting Francis Ngannou, he said no, that AJ isn't interested in those type of fights. Yet here we are now. We've arrived at the destination where in March, I believe it is, that the two will be going out and fighting each other and squaring off. So delving into this and just saying out of my stall, really, this seems like almost the path of maybe least resistance to building up and heating the fight between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua, given the credit as the champion, without maybe facing the opponents needed to really build and heat up that fight. It's a fight that we've talked about for a long time. We wanted to see, and with fights like Joshua and Wilder falling to the wayside, we really need this one. And I think they're pushing towards that. They're pushing towards this Ngannou fight.
Yeah, it is March the 8th, we're led to believe, which is a Friday night rather than the Saturday because it's the Saudi Grand Prix, apparently, on the Saturday night. And so they don't want to clash with that. But yeah, let's look at some of your messages and I'll get into it a bit more. Rick Sutcliffe says we may be seeing AJ back on top by the end of 2024. Not sure this necessarily gets him there, though. Fred Hampton's gone out on a big one here. Says Ngannou's going to win by KO. I'm sure you'll get good odds for that, Fred. King says, is it an exhibition or a normal fight? As far as we're aware, it's a 10-round heavyweight contest. No exhibition rules. Big Dog Boxing says, now Saudi are involved more than ever. Everyone is chasing a bag, not necessarily a belt. Arnold Gergei says probably fight Hrgović when Fury rematches Usyk. And Snow says it's a 10-round fight. You know what that means. What does that mean? To enlighten us, Snow. Yeah, I mean, when I first saw the news, I wasn't entirely surprised because I think Eddie Hearn had said they were in negotiations with 3 fighters. And it's always the rule of 3, you'll notice, with Eddie Hearn. You can always pick out who it's most likely to be, because 2 of the names you'll always think, yeah, a bit soon for that or a bit dangerous for that. And it'll always be often the least kind of one you want to see will end up being the one it is. And we've seen that used with other fighters in the past. I'm sure Eddie Hearn's not the only promoter that does it either. But I think the 3 fighters were Hrgović, Zhilei Zhang, and Ngannou. And it never looked likely, in my view anyway, to be Zhang, not this soon. As much as Joshua might want to do it, he's a powerful southpaw, coming off those 2 big destructive wins over Joe Joyce. Always looks a bit fanciful. Hrgović seemed the favourite, though, because he's got the belt. But quite soon after Day of Reckoning to have another huge fight for both men. I know Hrgović got an easier, well, on paper easier night than AJ, although they both were pretty one-sided victors in Riyadh. So we thought maybe Hrgovic, but obviously we haven't seen that IBF belt vacated yet. We expect that to happen once Fury and Usyk get on February the 17th. And then Ngannou was always kind of lurking there as something where you knew financially it would be incredibly attractive to AJ and his team. And on the flip side of that, people always talk about, maximum risk, minimum reward for reasons why fighters get avoided. I guess Devin Haney's a more recent example of that. In the past, fighters like Andre Ward, Winky Wright, and so on, members of the Who Needs Him club. But this is kind of the opposite, maybe, in AJ and his team's view, in that, Ngannou, minimum risk, maybe. They might think that Tyson Fury underprepared, or he's getting old, or a combination of the two against Ngannou. Maybe that performance flattered the former UFC fighter. And certainly maximum reward because it's taking place in Riyadh, Turkey al-Sheikh, putting the bankroll behind it. And so maybe it's a keep busy fight. Someone alluded to in the chat, we know Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk are going to be each other for at least 2 fights. So those belts, apart which is one, will not coast for quite some time. So maybe it will be AJ and Ngannou if all goes well there, then Hrgovic, get that rematch out of the way, and maybe towards the end of the year, we'll see Joshua against the winner, which I imagine his team will be hoping is Tyson Fury, because it's already been proven twice that Usyk has the requisite skill set to get past Anthony Joshua, and it'll be a harder sell as well if it's a fight we've already seen twice with the same outcome before. So they'll be hoping Fury comes out on top, and there's obviously some doubt about that as well, which I'm sure we'll be discussing in a bit. In fact, there's probably more doubt about Fury Usyk now than there is about Joshua and Ngannou amongst boxing fans in general. We've got a poll, which we're just going to put out now, and I'll ask Ayman his view on this in a minute. But how much do you feel that Ngannou is? Let me just see how I put it to make sure I get this right. Do you give Francis Ngannou more or less of a chance of beating AJ than you gave Otto Wallin before their fight? So going into the Wallin fight, I saw quite a few people picking him, but just as many, if not more, picking AJ. What chances are you giving Ngannou in relation to that? Is he a risk, or is it all reward, as we've asked in the title? And Ayman, what do you think?
It's a bit of a difficult one to answer, really, because he's sort of going against the boxing protocol by sticking with Francis Ngannou after his performance against Tyson Fury, with Otto Wallin being the more accomplished boxer, at least of what we've seen. Well, yeah, he will be the more accomplished boxer, but with what Ngannou was able to do against Tyson Fury, really kind of have to take him for that form of performance, taken into account as well when it comes to Anthony Joshua and this new recent form, this new rebuild under the guide of the banner of Ben Davison and his team. They're really ones who look to research and find out information and really prepare their fighters for the fights with the watching of the tape. And there isn't much tape on, isn't much tape on Francis Ngannou, at least with 10-ounce gloves on. Anyway, there's only the Fury fight to go on. But I find him to be, personally, I think off of the back of Otto Wallin fight, where Wallin really didn't offer too much. It's quite a low bar to pass there, and I think Ngannou will surpass that low bar in terms of toughness. It will be a harder fight for Joshua, especially with the assets that he brings to the ring. He's the same sort of height. He's probably more, well, judging by the way Ngannou was able to impose himself on Fury, he looks the more sturdier, the more bigger, heavier fighter, the one that will be dominant in the ring in terms of his clinches, not in just terms of the clinch proficiency because of his background, but in terms of the way of the fighter who'll be more stronger in those moments, especially with the cardio that he has as well, where AJ knows he's not a 12-round fighter. He's admitted that himself. Francis Ngannou has shown that he can keep up the cardio for those later rounds as well. So I think this is going to be a tougher fighting proposition, especially as well factor in the power that he has, power that's been able to clip Tyson Fury, power that I imagine will be able to clip Anthony Joshua too if he's not on toe on the fight. So I think in prospect, this will be the tougher fight for Anthony Joshua. I will right now be picking Joshua as the favorite. I think the problem with Fury and Ngannou is Fury probably gave Ngannou, alongside maybe not taking him as the challenge that he was, maybe a little bit too much respect. And in the way that Fury fights, not exactly the combination puncher Joshua is or has been in the past. I think he'll need to find them in this fight to dispatch of Francis Ngannou. I think we could see an early finish in favor of the former unified heavyweight champion, Anthony Joshua.